There are lots of great scenes in the originals, and there are lots of great scenes from different characters. You have the very obvious ones like Klaus, Elijah and Hayley, and the not so obvious ones like Vincent or Josh. However, when it comes to the best scene in the show, or even the best scene in the entire verse, I don't think there's any scene that actually tops Klaus Mikaelson's trial scene in the season finale of season 3. Now, the reason why I have this scene as the best or arguably the best scene in the entire verse is because the scene perfectly illustrates just how good of a character Klaus is. As in, everything you need to know about Klaus, you can actually find that out just by watching that scene. From an acting standpoint, I think only one Klaus Mikaelson scene actually tops that, but from a writing standpoint, no other scene actually tops it. It is easily, in my opinion, the best scene in the entire verse. But before we actually go for this scene, we need a bit of background context, as in how and why Klaus is actually in this position in the first place. Up until the end of season 2, Klaus has an aura of invincibility, as in he doesn't lose. He has never lost in his 1000 years of life, ever. And the reason why Klaus always wins isn't because he's stronger than you. Klaus has faced a lot of people that are much stronger than him or much more powerful than him, but he always wins. Why? It isn't because he's stronger than them, it's because he's smarter than them. And it isn't because Klaus is a genius of a character, because it isn't just that, because if it was down to that, then Klaus would have lost already. But the biggest contributing factor to why he's smarter than everyone in the Vampire Diaries universe is because Klaus is a master of psychology, as in Klaus can read you like a book. Klaus can predict almost all of your moves and what could possibly happen when you actually do it. However, on the flip side, you can't do it to him. Klaus is completely unpredictable. Nobody knows how far Klaus will go to win. Klaus puts winning almost above everything, his sanity, his reputation, almost everything. When Klaus executes a plan, he doesn't really think that much about repercussions, as in he doesn't care about your opinions of him. He just does it. Why? Because he wants to win. Remember when Klaus told Caroline that he loved her? In that very scene, he had Tyler bite her to send a message. And then in the next season, he bit Caroline himself and then murdered Tyler's mom and massacred all of Tyler's friends. He doesn't think about repercussions before he does the deed. He doesn't think about repercussion whilst he's doing it. The only time he actually comes to him is after he's already done it, as in after the damage is already done. That's when he actually thinks about repercussion. That's why Klaus is so good at war. That's why Klaus always wins, because you can't guess what he's going to do. Because if you assume that Klaus loves somebody so he's gonna take it easy, then you will understand that you are very wrong, because when Klaus is in war, it almost feels like he hates everyone and he doesn't care about anyone. And he does that so that when he executes his plan, he has no psychological drawback that's actually holding him back, stopping him from winning.
That's the thing. I don't know that. I have absolutely no way of predicting what that man is going to do. When it comes to war, there is absolutely no strategist that is as great as Klaus Mikaelson.
Klaus was going to end the entire Bennett bloodline to get his siblings back. Klaus massacred Catherine's entire village out of revenge and also to send a message. A message that was so strong and caused such a psychological damage on Catherine, it made his job with Elena a lot easier because he used Catherine as an example. Basically saying that if I don't get my way, I will kill everyone. And I know you don't want them dead because you love them, but I don't really care. I will kill all of them if I don't get my way. And typically, he always gets what he wants. That's the way that Klaus's life has been. Every single time he's been in a war, he threatens, he wins, but he usually has to sacrifice things to actually win. But he doesn't really care as long as he wins. However, by the end of season 2, to defeat Dahlia, he did that one too many times. To defeat Dahlia, he had to sacrifice his relationship with everyone that he actually cares about. And this is a problem because the one thing that Klaus fears in life is not just losing, it's being alone. And don't get me wrong, against Dahlia, did everyone do the right thing? No. Did a lot of people make mistakes? Yes. Was Klaus's plan a success? Yes. Was everyone else's plan before that a success? No. So although Klaus did save the day and although Klaus's plan was a success, the collateral damage was still high enough for others to actually hate him. And Klaus himself noticed that, which is why he noticed a drastic shift in personality from Klaus in season 3 compared to Klaus in season 2. Which is why if you notice, before Klaus actually does anything in season 3, he usually thinks about how exactly the action is going to affect others, specifically the people that he cares about, before he actually does it. Before that, he only thinks about the effects afterwards. He never thinks about it beforehand. For example, when Freya actually came up with a plan to actually sacrifice the Vina to actually get enough power from the ancestors to actually avert Lucian, Elijah gave the green light, but Klaus didn't because he understood that it will actually affect Marcel and Kol. They will immediately start to dislike him. So he told Freya to find another way. If that was season 2 Klaus would have never let that happen. Klaus would have just told Freya, go ahead, we need to win. Especially seeing as Rebecca's life is at stake. And obviously because Freya's hand was forced, she went on with the plan anyways. And after that happened, you want to know who the blame fell on? Klaus. Even though he didn't give the green light to it, it still fell on his head. And there are 2 reasons for this. One, because although Klaus didn't actually agree with Freya's decision to actually sacrifice the Vina, he still feels the need to actually protect her. Why? Because she is family. He loves her and he cares about her. When it comes down to it, he will sacrifice himself for his family. He will sacrifice his sanity for his family. He will sacrifice his reputation for his family. If you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at me. If you want to hurt somebody, hurt me. That's Klaus's mindset when it comes to protecting his family. The same way how he endured 52 years of torture for Rebecca is the exact same way how he actually tried to defend Freya's actions, even though he didn't agree with it. And the second reason is the storyline that's been building up for the entirety of season 3, which is just Klaus's reputation and Klaus's past life actually catching up to him. Like his reputation actually precedes him, and it's not just in a good way, as in it's not just in a positive way. There's also negatives and drawbacks to his reputation preceding him. If any member of his family actually did something, they are just going to assume that Klaus gave the green light. Hence why Marcel was so pissed off at Klaus. Which all culminated with Vincent giving Marcel the serum, Marcel taking it, then went to go confront Klaus on a bridge. Elijah showed up, killed him, which activated the serum, making him into the second upgraded original. Klaus quickly understood that Marcel is too strong to actually fight head on and he will lose, especially seeing that Marcel's bite is also lethal to him. So Marcel is one of the enemies that he can't beat head on, but he can outsmart. For example, Dahlia, or Elijah and Barney, or Esther. But however, Marcel took the chances of Klaus actually outsmarting him by biting both Kol and Elijah. This ultimately gave Klaus a choice, and he doesn't really have long to actually make that choice. It's either sacrifice his family to continue his fight with Marcel, or by helping his family survive the situation by risking his actual undefeated streak. An undefeated streak that has never been broken before. Meaning for his family to actually survive, he needs to actually suffer his first loss. Something that was made apparent after Freya linked all of his siblings' life force to him. Meaning he can't die. If he dies, everyone else dies. He needs to stay alive long enough for Hayley to actually find a cure. Meaning that Klaus has to willingly lose.
Davina, please! No, please don't leave me!
There may be a way to save them.
Then I will move the world to make it so.
I need time.
You think I should stand trial before that death-dealing mob?
Oh, that's the easy part. In order to save your family, you need to come out of that trial alive.
And then you notice that when Klaus actually showed up and actually told Marcel that I am actually here for my trial, Marcel was very confused because he would never assume that Klaus would willingly walk into a situation in which he's very likely not going to leave alive. But what he doesn't know is that Klaus is not doing it for himself. The egotistical, narcissistic psychopath that Marcel once knew isn't the Klaus that's standing in front of him. But anyways, the trial begins and we actually get our opening statements from both characters. And we actually get to see just how bad and just how evil Klaus was before the drastic change in personality. The tit for tat argument that he had with Marcel is very similar to the tit for tat argument that he had with Hayley. And with Hayley, although he was easily winning because all of his arguments were landing compared to Hayley, who none of her arguments were landing, he quickly realizes that winning isn't really winning. Hayley is somebody that he cares about. He had a different goal in mind other than just winning an argument. The ulterior motive for Klaus in that scene was to actually get Hayley to view him the same way how she viewed him before the whole stuff with Dahlia, before the whole stuff with Esther and Finn. However, beating Hayley is not going to get him any closer to that goal because Hayley would still hate him. Because for him to beat Hayley, he has to make Hayley into the bad person in the situation. Hence why he stopped talking even though he was winning. It's the exact same way with him and Marcel in the trial scene. However, the slight difference between the two is that with Marcel, Klaus isn't actually winning. It's more like a 50-50, and he can't afford that because he needs to be winning. He needs control of the arguments. He's letting Marcel take control, which he quickly understood that he can't be doing because he needs to control how Marcel is actually going to react. He needs to make Marcel do exactly what he wants him to do. If he doesn't, then he wouldn't sway Marcel from his already made up decision of wanting him dead. Remember, he needs to survive this situation. Hence why he stopped talking. Why? Because he understood that he's on defense and he's playing into Marcel's hand. So he stopped talking. And then Rebecca stepped in to try to defend him, which made the situation a lot worse. The arguments that Rebecca had at the start were very good and very logical, but it won't work because Marcel is doing his job very well. Just like with Klaus, for Rebecca to beat Marcel in the trial, she needs to attack Marcel's character and actually make him look worse than Klaus. However, every vampire that's there at that moment who are acting as the jury don't know Marcel that well. They know Klaus very well, and the only feeling they have towards Klaus is hatred. You can't sway them by attacking Marcel, and she also tried to attack them by making everyone there feel hypocritical. That also wouldn't work because they're not there to actually get the opinions of Klaus actually swayed away from what they already think. They're there to witness the downfall of Klaus Mikaelson. They're there to witness the first defeat of Klaus Mikaelson. And if you notice the argument that she has actually used that argument before. And in that situation, it worked.
Why do you all assume that I hate Elena so much?
Well, I mean, you did run her off a bridge.
You all seem to forget that Elena's death was the only way to save my family. I did the same thing that every one of you would have done to protect the people that you love. And before you cast me as the bad guy, maybe you should remember that Elena's helped to kill not one, but two of my brothers. Maybe we're not as different as everyone's making us out to be.
It worked in that situation because she was defending herself. She hadn't really done anything that Stefan would hate her for. So when she plays the hypocrisy card, there is absolutely no counter to it. However, with Marcel, she isn't defending herself, she's defending Klaus. Everyone in that building hates him, meaning using hypocrisy against them is not going to work. The relationship between them and Klaus is not the same as the relationship between her and Stefan. And then her sanity switched due to the hex, and she basically made Klaus' situation a lot more unwinnable than it already was. However, even with the hex in effect, what she said at the very end really helped Klaus, and I'm pretty sure that Klaus actually listened thoroughly to what she actually said at the end because he actually doubled down on what Rebecca actually said. Rebecca briefly mentions that Klaus needs to suffer as much as she has, meaning that killing Klaus is not going to grant me enough justice because that's an easy way out. He needs to suffer as much as I have. And Klaus took that and doubled down on it to actually make it completely pointless for Marcel to believe that killing him is going to grant him any justice. Meaning that for everyone in the building at that point to actually get justice, Klaus needs to suffer as much as they have. Meaning that Klaus can't die, which is something that Klaus wants. Hence why Klaus doubled down on it in his amazing speech that basically sealed his fate.
So what of it? Each and every one of you stands here today because I willed it to be so. This mockery of a trial is allowed only because of me. And your very immortality is a gift from me. A debt that you can never repay. One that far offsets all of my supposed crimes. I owe you nothing. So go on! Kill me! I welcome the peace of death as a reprieve from this tedium. I will die suffering but a taste of the agony I have inflicted upon all of you.
Klaus went after everyone. He wanted everyone in that vicinity to hate him. And then after he got everyone to hate him, he made it absolutely apparent that killing him is beneficial to him. Killing him is what he wants them to do. He basically used reverse psychology on them. If you kill me, I win because you're granting me a relief. Killing me is not a punishment because I know that I'm going to die willingly. I'm going to die happily because I know that you're going to suffer way more than I would. And Klaus baited Marcel with this, and Marcel took the bait and decided not to kill him but used Papatunde's blade on him, which in turn actually grants Klaus what he wanted in the first place, which is to get out of the situation without dying. And also when Rebecca said this,
Death is too good for him! You have the means to make him suffer. Let that be his fate!
it is heavily implied that this is actually regular Rebecca and she only did that so that Marcel would actually take the bait. And she didn't just tell just Marcel, she announced it to everyone, so everyone now can understand that Klaus would be suffering just as much as they are. So yes, although Klaus faced his first defeat in over 1,000 years, and also yes, although the Mikaelsons actually did fall, Klaus fell on his own terms. Even when he loses, he still wins.